have not yet fully decided on what to focus in this retreat, but I would like to start at least with the subject of purification. Healing happens primarily in the emotion centers and the body. Purification happens in the mind. However, there is also a level of healing that is happening in the mind as well. So purification and healing in the mind at times are interconnected. Healing is about the past wounds, past traumas, past pain, fear that has been accumulated from the past. Purification is partially related to the past, but also is related to the now. It's happening in the now, in the present. Consider a scenario that someone has undergone complete healing, process of healing. Does it mean that this person will never generate any negativity or will not experience negative emotions? No, it does not. Because you see, that is the structure, the very construct of ego, that it is designed to strive for its survival in an environment that is not always supporting it, always contradicting ego's desires and needs, and is challenging in many different ways. That's why, based on these circumstances in which ego exists and its very makeup, how it was designed to survive, it can always generate negativity. So healing is the removal of the past obstacles. Purification is the removal of the present obstacles. And for purification to take place, one has to generate such intention first to serve the highest good, truth, purity of love. And one has to cultivate mindfulness of one's thoughts and emotions because emotions are also experienced in the mind. One has to be very attentive to what is actually happening in the mind, and one has to cultivate certain kind of discipline. Purification is not something that just follows the process of healing. These two are occurring simultaneously or parallelly, even though at times one can be emphasized more than the other. The purpose of purification is to reach the non-reactive mind, mind which is rational in a true sense. It is responding from the place of truth and not just emotional reactions. We begin generally the process with healing because without removing at least the major obstacles from the past, one is too much hooked up in the past and one simply cannot be rational. One is being controlled too much by emotions that may occur in the mind, but they are actually rooted in emotional wounds from the past. The heart, in the solar plexus, in the throat, in the other areas of the body. Human beings are not really rational. Not being rational means that one is not in control of one's emotional responses. A rational person can be still emotional or can experience emotions, but from the place of harmony, from reality, from truth. You need to observe your mind, observe your thought, in order to find the emotional root of your thoughts. And I am not just speaking about finding the truth in the body, because that would be the subject of healing, but in this case, about finding the truth in the mind. Of course, you can experience thoughts which are neutral, emotionally neutral, but there's not much emotional significance to your thoughts. But I'm speaking about those thoughts where a certain level of emotional intensity is underlying them. It can be slight intensity, it doesn't have to be strong intensity, but you feel there is some emotional build-up in your thoughts. It can happen in situation of where you relate to other people, which can trigger more you emotionally. Or it can happen even when you are alone, but then you are still relating to other people, mostly, just in your own head, in your own mind. Thoughts with emotional intensity can also be triggered by other circumstances, like your material survival, security in the physical world, the certain basic fear of being here, needing to cope with this reality, and perhaps lack of trust that you can cope with that reality, or that this reality can actually support you, and does support you. There are many scenarios. That's why you need to observe your mind. In this way you'll be also able to identify your main patterns and tendencies to produce this kind of thoughts that are connected to these kinds of emotions. You need to observe yourself vigilantly. In fact, most of the time, it's not like what people call watching the mind. It's not like that at all. Because watching the mind, you are removing yourself from the mind. You become an observer. You are watching what is happening in the mind from within the mind. In fact, you are not just watching the mind as whatever is occurring in that mind, you are watching the one who is watching, in the sense that you are aware and conscious of and sensitive to the experiencer of the mind, who is actually the main one to understand and to transform. And that one is the ego. Now we are using the term ego in a specific sense here. Ego is that part of the external person which performs the function of the center of human intelligence, human consciousness. The external person is more than ego, but ego is like that part, like that part of the external person that is the closest to personality. And we are not using ego as a negative term. We are actually using ego as a positive term. You need to have ego, because otherwise you could not exist as a human. And it is actually very beautiful to have ego. Ego is not just a sense of me, because the person also has a sense of me, even without the ego, without, let's say you are in deep absorption and the human consciousness is absorbed, or at least set aside, you still have a sense of me in the person. So ego is basically part of the person that is at the center of human consciousness. And you are watching that part. You are conscious of that part as you are observing what is happening in your mind. Quietly. From within the mind, mindfully, gently, lovingly. You are not watching your mind like a hawk watching a prey from the sky, walking in the on the forest, in the forest, on the earth. Not like that. We are watching it from the place of being it. You are not watching something that is not you, something that is just happening to you, occurring to you. You are watching the whole of it as yourself. Because you have undergone training in consciousness for so many years, you are equipped with the capacity to maintain a silent mind, quiet mind, which allows you actually to perform that task so much efficiently. So imagine your mind is so busy, you cannot stop your thoughts, your train of thoughts, and there's no space, there's no enough quietness in order to be conscious of what is actually occurring there. You don't want to stop the mind, you want to let it be, but in a quiet way, and be conscious of it, and to understand it. Because in that process you are actually trying to understand your thoughts. Your thoughts and your emotions. They are connected. Emotion and thought, they usually experience as one. They are not the same, but they experience as one, in unity. Sometimes there's a certain gap between them, such as a thought is arising and then it triggers emotion. And the emotion comes in delay. Well, it does not really matter. What matters is that they are connected. So your goal is to understand without judgment what is happening in your mind. But your goal is also to keep dissolving any negative tendencies in the mind for the sake of others and for the sake of yourself, because in this way you are also hurting yourself. Peace is not just beyond the mind, peace is also in the mind. So you want to realize peace in the mind and peace of the mind. Human beings are very complex. That is why the process of healing and purification is very complex, and understanding of human mind is not easy at all. Full understanding, that is. To even understand what is happening there is not easy to capture, because there are so many things happening and overlapping. That's why in that process you are also, you will be able to gain a deeper understanding of that mind that you are. Because you are the mind too. You are intelligence of the mind too. It's not a bad idea to have a diary that you write down your discoveries and your dominant patterns in the mind, the most commonly occurring thoughts and emotions. Remember what initially triggers your thoughts and corresponding emotions is happening in the unconscious mind. Then it reaches the subconscious mind, and then it should become conscious. And then what you do with that which has become conscious will have impact on what kind of information will go back into the unconscious. Meaning you can only transform things in the conscious. You cannot transform the unconscious because it is unconscious. You cannot really transform the subconscious because there is not enough of you in the subconscious. You can only transform the conscious. And then you transform the unconscious and you transform the subconscious. So purification is happening in the conscious mind. That what I said about not having judgments about yourself is very important, because judging yourself is actually a negative reaction which will go then back into the unconscious. That information, that negative information. So you want to bring a positive feedback to whatever is happening, even if it is not to your liking. You don't have to like it. You have to understand it and need to transform it. No one says that you should be perfect. You are not supposed to reach certain ideal so that you can feel good about yourself. Rather, you should be in harmony and in full cooperation with the process of your own transformation. And there are layers to the transformation, and I hope that in this retreat we'll be able to reveal them more and more. For instance, someone offends you. You can react in all kinds of ways. Feeling threatened, feeling angry, wanting to fight back, and then feeling hurt. So you want to go from the most gross levels to more subtle ones, such as you want to eliminate first the sense of being threatened, because that puts you in a self-defensive position. In a position where you lose your power. Then you might want to eliminate anger as a way of fighting back, which is a weak response to preserve your power. Then you want to maybe eliminate the sense of feeling offended, because it is also a strategy through which you are trying to protect yourself. Like you are vulnerable in a negative way, feeling offended is quite an interesting response. I need to think about it a bit more. And then you want to eliminate the feeling of being hurt. Feeling of being hurt is a very natural response, especially if you are offended by someone that is dear to you. It's very natural. You could say it's a natural response, but it's not the ultimate response. It's not a response of this happening from the place of pure mind and pure ego. So you want to also eventually eliminate that, so you're actually not hurt. You're not hurt, you're not offended, you're not angry, you're not threatened, and so forth. I'm just giving, I've not really created a clear map here, so I'm just spontaneously speaking, but these are the things to discover, and we are all discovering them, and we'll be discovering them, because the mind has to be purified, the mind has to become conscious, the mind has to be transformed. It's only through complete understanding, mindfulness, vigilance, discipline, and renunciation of that in the ego which is tainted, which is not pure.